Professor, clear something up for me. My esteemed colleague, Senator Feinstein, talked about how you'll vote and not vote. You don't know how you're going to vote yet, do you?
I certainly do not. And in every case that comes before me, I carefully consider the law and the arguments of the parties and decide cases according to the law.
Okay. Your parents immigrated here from India, is that right, Professor?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you ever been a victim of racial discrimination?
Yes, Senator, I think there are times where I believe I've been treated differently on the basis of my race. It's not a great feeling.
Did it happen when you were younger, or has it happened when you were an adult?
You know, it's hard to say. It certainly happened when I was younger. I think we lived in a different time. But my parents also faced different forms of discrimination, in the workplace. And, I remember them telling me, they went to go eat at a restaurant, once when they were on a road trip, and they were told, this was in the early 70s, they were told,
Sure.
you can't eat in the dining room, but we'll put a table for you here out in the hallway. So those are things that are part of the stories I grew up with, but I was also encouraged to focus on the positive, right? All the great things in this country and all the opportunities for advancement and all the good people who who helped my parents along the way. So that was really what I was taught to focus on.
Do you think our society has gotten better in terms of appreciating ethnic diversity?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Do you think I'm just curious, do you think it's possible to be racially insensitive without being a racist? I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just want to know your thoughts.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people lack exposure to different groups, so there's sometimes a lack of understanding
Okay.
of differences.
I want to shift gears a second. Can you tell me the difference between an originalist and a textualist?
Well, Senator, I think originalists look at the text of the Constitution, of course, and then look to see what the original public meaning of those words were at the time the provision of the Constitution was enacted.
Okay, and by public meaning, you mean, what do you mean? Do you mean the drafters or the average citizen at that time in our country?
Well, I think it's usually meant to be a reasonable observer, who was sort of paying attention and involved in thinking about these issues. So kind of a reasonable, objective observer at the time.
At that time, let's say in the late 1700s?
Yes, at that time.
As opposed, and so, are you an originalist?
Senator, I try not to put labels on myself
Sure.
in terms of judicial philosophy. If I've been nominated to a court of appeals, I would certainly follow the precedents of the Supreme Court, which often look at the original public meaning of constitutional provisions.
A tense Senate hearing erupts as Senator Kennedy questions a judicial nominee on discrimination, originalism, constitutional meaning, and America's evolving understanding of equality. This video delivers a powerful moment-by-moment breakdown of the viral exchange, packed with insight, context, and a clear narrative.
If an originalist interprets the Constitution based on the public meaning, as you put it, or the meaning to the average person at the time the Constitution was adopted, do you think the average person at that time, when the Constitution was adopted, believed in, I don't know, desegregated schools?
Well, Senator, it's not necessarily what they intended, the words would have meant. It's what those words could fairly be taken to mean. So for in the context of the 14th Amendment, the drafters of that used the very broad language of equal protection of the laws, which, regardless of what their intentions were, they use this very sweeping language, which has been a tremendous promise.
But this is what troubles me. I'm not saying I disagree with it. I'm just seeing how you reconcile it in your mind. we're supposed to, if you're an originalist, you interpret the Constitution as understood by the average American at that time, right? Okay? Do you believe that the average American at that time believed in integrated schools?
You know, I don't know. They may not have, but they may have had an understanding of the meaning of the word equality,
Right.
which was to treat people the same, even
That's
if
a
they
good
did
point.
not, even if they
That's a
did
good
not
point.
believe that segregated schools was a violation of equality. They would have had an understanding that equal means treating people the same, and you know, that promise has been carried forward in our history in, you know, a series of important cases by the Supreme Court.
That was good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscriber button for more political showdown.